Gledate Dnevnik radio televizije Srbije.
President of the Republic Slobodan Milošević held a meeting with his cabinet today. During the meeting, the cabinet assessed the political and military situation after the brutal aggression of NATO forces led by United States on Yugoslavia. The cabinet concluded that the air attacks constitute a serious criminal act against the people of Yugoslavia. The cabinet analyzed the consequences of the aggression and concluded that the members of the Yugoslav army effectively responded to the attack, demonstrating a high level of patriotism, courage and commitment. It was also concluded that the country successfully carried out all the necessary actions imposed by the situation and determined what further domestic and international measures are needed in order to defend sovereignty, territorial integrity, independence and constitutional order of Yugoslavia, as well as freedom and dignity of its citizens and international recognition of our just cause. President of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia and Commander-in-Chief Slobodan Milošević issued an executive order this morning commending the members of the Yugoslav Air Force and Air Defense, Command of the Third Army and Pristina Corps for successfully accomplishing their defense tasks in NATO aggression against Yugoslavia. The statement was issued by the military cabinet of the Commander-in-Chief. Last night, immediately following the first NATO attacks led by Washington, the federal government proclaimed an emergency state of war in Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. Today, the federal government cut diplomatic relations with 4 countries of NATO that played a leading role in attack on our country: United States, Germany, England, and France. Pursuant to Article 8 of the Serbian Law on Defense, Ministry of Information issued an order to deport from Serbia foreign press journalists from the 4 countries which participated in the attack or whose territory was used to launch the attack on our country. Through their reporting from our country, these journalists incited the NATO aggression on our country and misinformed the international community on the current situation in Yugoslavia. Zhivadin Jovanovic, Minister for Foreign Affairs, met today with the Russian ambassador Yuri Kotov, who delivered to him a message from President Yeltsin to Milošević and Yugoslav leadership. Ambassador Kotov stated that the Russian people and their leadership are deeply troubled by the direct NATO aggression against Yugoslavia as a sovereign country, which constitutes a dangerous precedent for dictatorial policies and threat to entire international legal order. Ambassador also expressed Mr. Yeltsin's view that NATO acts as an international policeman, which Russia will never accept. Ambassador also informed Minister Ivanovic of specific measures that Russia has already taken or plans to undertake in response to NATO aggression against Yugoslavia. The information agency of the Yugoslav Army General Staff announced that in the several attacks carried out by NATO warplanes from United States, Great Britain, France, Italy, Canada, Germany, and Spain, and cruise missile attacks during the night between March 24th and 25th, military installations throughout the country were targeted. Attacks targeted more than 50 military facilities, including industrial facilities, UTVA factory in Pačevo, and Air Force manufacturing plant Moma Stanojlović. During the attacks by warplanes and missile cruises, 10 people were killed, 38 injured, while 1 member of the Yugoslav army is considered missing. Defense efforts of the Yugoslav army were at the level of their maximum capabilities. The military demonstrated a high level of capabilities, courage and commitment in defending their country. During this extremely uneven air battle, 2 enemy planes were shot down and several cruise missiles. The morale, unity of the command and efficiency of the command chain have been preserved. With respect to the NATO aggression against Yugoslavia, which is an unprecedented criminal act in international relations and a direct expression of support to Albanian terrorists, Federal Ministry of Defense stated that all appropriate measures are being taken to defend our country from aggressors and protect our citizens and their property. The peacefully minded part of the international community strongly condemned this aggression and called for an immediate end to the aggression. Ministry of Defense highly commends the high level of commitment and efficiency of the Yugoslav military forces and their command in their response to NATO attacks, as well as the attitude of our citizens and all other defense structures. All citizens should continue to adhere to safety measures and instructions and continue to perform their regular duties. In view of the large numbers of volunteers who offered their services, Ministry of Defense would like to thank them for their high level of patriotism and commitment and advise them to follow the instructions of the Military General Staff. International Agency of the General Staff of the Yugoslav Army stated that many civilians volunteered to defend their country against the NATO aggression. In accordance with the law on the Yugoslav Army, only volunteers of legal age who are not older than the age of 65 may join the Army. In order to carry the application process in an orderly manner, the volunteers should apply to the regional military offices. This was a statement from the information agency of the Military General Staff. Our sources report that in addition to 2,400 NATO soldiers stationed at Petrovac Airport in Macedonia, 1,800 U.S. soldiers arrived. NATO plans to use these forces to provoke border incidents and stage an alleged Yugoslav attack on Macedonia, which would be used as a pretext for sending NATO ground troops into Yugoslavia. For this reason, they are concentrating terrorists in Macedonia along the border with Yugoslavia, where there are already 2,500 terrorists, and in Albania about 1,000 near the border point Deva. However, NATO forces in Macedonia have a lot of problems with local population, which does not approve of their presence, stops the military movements, and stones the members of military protesting against NATO aggression against Yugoslavia. France is considering withdrawing their soldiers from Macedonia. We visited Serbian village Šilovo near Gnjilane, where a missile launched from a plane hit a home of Gordana and Momčilo Stanojević, who reside there with their minor children and who by a miracle managed to survive. There are no military objects in the village, which makes this a purposeful crime against humanity committed by NATO planes. The missile caused substantial damage, pierced the house, making 3 large dents, and landed in neighboring backyard. I was sitting here, the children were sleeping in a bed over there, and all of a sudden on the window I saw the dust, and we had a candle here on the chair. The candle fell down. My daughter started crying. I took her by the hand and my son, and we went straight down. It was dark. Everything was just damaged. The children were crying. We went down into the yard, and the neighbors gathered around. My daughter was crying for a long time. I couldn't calm her down. My son as well. He cried. In Gnjilane, near the army barracks and the former regional verification center of OSCE, a radio locator with additional recharging capabilities was discovered. It was left there by the OSCE observers in order to be used for guiding the NATO attacks and their strikes against the army barracks. Radio locator and a map showing military targets confirmed that OSCE observers engaged in an illegal espionage and prepared the site for NATO aggression. What are your comments on this somewhat unexpected situation where on one side we have this huge military power that demonstrates some weaknesses, and on the other side Yugoslav army who has shown excellent results in defending their country? The General Staff and the Army of Yugoslavia have accurately predicted NATO action, their composition and manner of attack. This was not a surprise to us, nor did they scare us. What they have done and are doing still is not based on their military skills. But in effect, this is an excessive and raw use of modern military technology, because to use 450 planes against our small country and army, and to use more than 150 missiles that can be launched from distances higher than 1,500 kilometers, that means that either they're truly afraid of us, or they're not able to plan and carry out an operation with forces that are proportional to the size of the enemy forces. Or this means that they're planning to carry out a barbarian genocide against our people. They are indeed using excessive force. They're using so many planes and the so-called distance firing against a country that has only 100,000 square kilometers. This demonstrates utterly dirty and inhuman goals. Yes, you are completely right. If we only had 1/3 of their combat capabilities, they would suffer much greater losses in their first clash with us. I would like to know how would they plan and carry out an aggression against a large country and a large military power. They would probably use more than tens of thousands of planes or something like this. However, they do have to know that each aggression has its beginning and its end, and we shall see what end will be in this case. We do not wish to win against NATO, nor do we profess to be able to do so, but we can defend our homeland. They have to know that we have actually congenital military capabilities and courage, and what is most important, we are motivated and we have the citizens who are decisive in defending their country. I don't know what is their motive. Their motive is probably to, in alliance with the terrorists whom they battle in their own countries, to destroy our people. But I don't think that our people can be destroyed. Don't you think that NATO planners expected that the will of the people will be weakened after the first air attacks? However, something completely opposite happened. The people clearly stated they would not stand for this aggression and will defend their homeland. Don't you think that they have no clear plan for the future? I think that they're not familiar enough with our history, with our traditions, and they do not know our Serbian people. I think they have embarked upon a dubious adventure from which it will be difficult to exit. We shall do everything possible to defend our country. Our people have demonstrated this. They have responsibly and courageously endured these barbaric actions of NATO. Few days ago, when we were visiting our border next to Macedonia, while we were preparing ourselves for this NATO aggression, when I asked you whether NATO could win, you said, let them come and try. And how do you now interpret this situation? When do you think that NATO, together with their allies, terrorists in Kosovo, can substantially damage Yugoslav army and security forces? I have said before that terrorists in Kosovo do not represent a danger to us. And we are doing everything we can to completely defeat these forces. Now, whether NATO will come to Kosovo, I have spoken about this many times before, and so has our military and government leadership, and so have our people. We shall do everything possible and even give our lives to prevent them from coming to Kosovo. I don't know what assessments they have, what they plan to find in Kosovo, and how they plan to survive there. President Milosevic commanded the forces of the Third Army, which is under your command, for their efforts in defending the country against the aggression. What message would you like to send to your officers and soldiers? My officers are wonderful, excellent professionals, skillful soldiers who can both command and fight. And our soldiers are true heroes. As long as we have soldiers and officers like this, I am not worried that we shall lose Kosovo, and our people can only be proud of these young men and officers that are currently fighting in Kosovo. Mr. General, thank you for this conversation. Unprecedented attack and aggression against our country caused rage, but not panic among our citizens. The rage is further enlarged by the fact that the civilian objects were targeted, residential suburbs, 3 elementary schools were damaged in Rakovica, residential houses, and even the spiritual treasure of the Serbian people, monastery Gračanica. In yesterday's NATO aggression, the missiles hit several civilian facilities in Pristina and surrounding villages. Enemy missiles landed in Gračanica, a village near Pristina inhabited by the Serbs, where the greatest Serbian medieval sacred object is located. Roofs, windows, and doors of many houses in the village were damaged. I think at 9:15 the first missile went by and landed over there. The detonation was so strong that everything started falling apart, and then there was a second missile and then a third one. Then there was a really strong detonation, and we went outside. We were hiding down there with our children, and thank God nobody was injured. What about the damage in the house? Well, you can come in and see the damage yourself. Everything is broken. You can see the windows, and the greatest damage is that they have troubled us. Our American policy is to destroy Serbia 100%. Clinton is doing what Hitler was trying to do, to occupy the whole world. Clinton is using Hitler's tactics. One missile went over the village and hit a meadow, making a crater 10 meters deep. In addition to the damage to the facilities, there were no other damage. In a synchronized effort, Albanian terrorists started firing at the nearby Serbian houses. In Pristina, the storage of the factory of plastic goods was hit, and so were residential areas, and Dardanje. The damage was large, but nobody was injured. Richard Holbrooke, during his visit to Yugoslavia, paid a visit to Gračanica, one of the most treasured monuments of the Serbian and international community, and only to, upon returning to the United States, send his missile to destroy this very cultural jewel. Last night at 8:55 p.m., a missile landed on the training center of the Ministry for Internal Affairs in Klisa, near Novi Sad. The glass was flying everywhere, and luckily we are all healthy. Did you see the missile? Yes, I did. It just went by and exploded. It looked, everything went on fire. Everything was burning. It was orange. In addition to the training center, local houses were damaged as well. The roofs, the windows, and the doors. Yes, there was damage in the nearby houses. We were told that the specific damage on the training center of the Ministry for Internal Affairs will be available tomorrow. This is evidence of the unheard of barbarism on the eve of the 21st century, the consequences of the insane decision of Bill Clinton, Javier Solana, and other authors of the New World Order. In the village of Katazi, the missiles landed this morning at 3:30 and destroyed the houses of Radoslav Arnautovic, Jasmina Radivojević, and Ljubiša Trnavac. Luckily, there were no injured. Luckily, we were hiding in my brother's basement, and that saved us. I have 2 grandsons and a son. Whatever they do, they can't hurt us. What do you, as a housewife, say concerning this? This is a great shame. They should be ashamed of what they did. I lived through what the Germans did. I was a child then, but they are just ruthless. You didn't believe that a new Hitler will emerge. No. He is actually worse than Hitler, and I would tell Clinton not to interfere in somebody else's house. He should be ashamed of what he did. These are the remnants of a NATO bomb identifying its owner, United States. This is a document of the sunset of the European civilization that should be shown to Kofi Annan and to the Security Council. Tony Blair, British Prime Minister, urged British journalists and population not to trust the TV footage from Yugoslavia showing civilian victims and damage. This is a new invention saying that even a TV footage is not to be trusted if it comes from Serbia. Tony Blair wishes, obviously, to conceal from his voters the crimes to which he was an accessory. His urging not to broadcast the footage was ignored by most British TV stations. Together with the beginning of the aggression and the first missiles that landed on Yugoslavia, Albanian terrorists commenced a general attack against members of the Yugoslav army and security forces. This only confirms an open alliance between NATO and the Kosovo Liberation Army, treating NATO force as its own force and support terrorist attacked areas in Glogovac, Srbica, Kosovska Mitrovica, Bajgora, Čičevica Mountain, and around Podujevo. These attacks were neutralized, and there were no adverse consequences to the members of the Yugoslav army. Terrorist bandits attempted to cause fear and panic among the citizens in the several areas around Prizren and Peć. During the night and during the day, they attacked the members of the Yugoslav army and security forces in 3 municipalities. Around midnight, they set on fire several facilities in Prizren and threw bombs and opened fire on several businesses. However, citizens remained calm and are urging international community to stop the human rights violations in a sovereign country. There is no panic and people are responding appropriately. This city has plenty of food. The Temporary Executive Council of Kosovo this morning condemned the brutal fascist, unprovoked aggression of NATO on Yugoslavia, which was launched in order to carve out the southern province and give it to the terrorists. The terrorists will never be able to accomplish their goal of ethnically cleanse Kosovo. The terrorists, under the umbrella of NATO aggression, organized and assisted in carrying out the most shameless aggression on one sovereign country. The Executive Council reinforced that all citizens must personally contribute to the uninterrupted operation of public institutions and economy. We are broadcasting the statement from the meeting of the federal government. In a meeting of the federal government chaired by Momir Bubnblatovic, the federal government made an aggression to stop diplomatic relations with the United States, Great Britain, France, and Germany. Through the aggression against Yugoslavia and the use of excessive military capabilities, the governments of Great Britain and France have humiliated and insulted the historic alliance and friendship between the governments of Yugoslavia and their governments. The government of Germany has reopened still existing wounds from World War II. The federal government shall reconsider diplomatic and other relations with other countries that participated directly or indirectly in the aggression against Yugoslavia. Federal government appreciates the voices of all those countries who have expressed their friendship, solidarity and support to Yugoslavia. Federal government has analyzed the current military situation in Yugoslavia and has concluded that all available resources and means must be made available to the armed forces and to the forces of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Thus, the government has adopted appropriate regulation to that effect, including the decree decree on financing the emergency defense costs, introducing a new federal tax on imports and certain goods in the amount of 0.6 to 4%. The federal government shall be in charge of these funds. At 7:25 p.m., Air Force attack sirens sounded in Belgrade. Again, the sirens went off in Pristina as well, sounding the danger of air attacks of NATO. This is the third alarm in Pristina today. Policeman Siniša Ostojić, 28 years old, and Vukatin Petković, 23 years old, were killed yesterday by Albanian terrorists in the village of Ljubožda. This was confirmed by the court in Peć. This attack was provoked when the policeman stopped a car, and at that time, Akrimeshi came out from the cafe and started firing on the policemen. Policemen were able to kill the terrorists, who happened to be the citizens of Yugoslavia temporarily residing in Yugoslavia. And at that time, another group of terrorists fired at the policemen and killed them. The investigation is under course. In the municipalities of Kuršumlija, Bujanovac, Lebane, Zubović, Zubin Potok, Yugoslav Red Cross provided an assistance in the amount of 130 tons of food and other items of humanitarian assistance. The International Red Cross and Red Crescent Committee has provided to the Yugoslav Red Cross a certain amount of humanitarian aid, including medication, food, and vehicles. Similar aid was provided by the Swiss Relief Agency. The aid was also provided by the Red Cross of Republika Srpska, Romania, Macedonia, and Germany, as well by a large number of our citizens residing abroad. Federal Ministry of Justice announced that the attack of NATO on a sovereign country represents the darkest and most dishonorable event after the Second World War. At the same time, the attack is a flagrant violation of the UN Charter and entire international law order. Aggression against Yugoslavia demonstrates that NATO does not abide even by the minimal requirements of the international law, and the alleged commitment to human rights and freedoms is just a smoke that conceals the true interests and goals of this alliance. By supporting Albanian terrorists, NATO, and especially United States, showed complete disregard to basic principles widely accepted in the international community with respect to terrorism. This was a statement from the Federal Ministry of Justice. Aggressors cannot overcome us is the message of our citizens who are shocked by the criminal aggression of NATO. They are committed to defending their country at any cost. This is a classic aggression, nothing new, a typical situation. It is our turn now. We should try to knock down as many planes as we can. I have heard about the 2 planes, the German planes. I'm really pleased about that. But slowly, one by one, we shall get them all. I am speechless. This is really terrible. This is a huge aggression against innocent people. I think it's a crime against these people. What do you think about our defense? Wonderful. They really did a great job, not only just our military, but all of our citizens. I think that this is a pure fascism that came about after Hitler. In fact, this is worse than Hitler's fascism. We should respond with all available means. Our army is doing well. We are patriots, and I don't want them to think that we shall bend our heads down. We will not do that. Our army is doing really well. Compliments to the army. They can bomb all they want. We are stronger and we shall beat them. We want to defend what is left in this country. I think our soldiers are doing excellent. What can I tell you? This is terrible, but we were always stronger. We shall win. I'm very pleased with the morale of all Serbs and people in Yugoslavia. I think this is a barbaric, tyrannic war led by America. This is a complete injustice. I think that no ethics are left in the West, and we have to defend our